Hello everyone and welcome back to Very Cold Lasagna, your filthy casual place for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. I am DylanLasagna and welcome back to another weekly recap of the 2022 NFL season. And week 13 is officially in the books as we begin the push to the playoffs. And man, this week was a wild one for the playoff picture as it really shook up, pal. Yeah, you know what Vince McMahon always used to say? It's time to shake things up around here. And it definitely was shaking up around the NFL and the playoff picture and with this week's results. So, yeah, December, always, as I said, the most wonderful time of the year when it comes to getting those playoff spots, at least trying to lock them up. And if they don't, well, you don't. So anyway, let's talk about the week that was week 13. Of course, you had the Arizona Cardinals and the Carolina Panthers on bye week in this week 13. And now let's talk about the games. Starting off with Thursday Night Football only on Amazon Prime Video as Josh Allen and the offense finally had a good running game going and had all the opportunities in the world as they played ball control and scored touchdowns on all three times that they were on the field playing ball control as they pulled away from the New England Patriots, who were so out of sync on offense that even Mac Jones was getting so mad at his team and especially his offensive coordinators with how stupid the offense was getting as the Bills defeated the Patriots 24-10 for their first division win of the season. Yes, this late in December. So good for them, I guess. So going to the Sunday slate of games, it didn't always translate to the end zone, but for Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers, they continue to look solid. While the defense put the lasting touches on Atlanta's offense that kept shooting itself in the foot one too many times with odd play calls, mistakes as Minkah Fitzpatrick intercepted Marcus Mariota and a Falcons' last gasp as the Steelers beat the Atlanta Falcons 19-16. Now in Baltimore, it was a mostly offensive display of offensive ineptitude, but the Ravens were able to outlast Denver after backup Tyler Huntley scored on a goal line run, and while Russell Wilson and the offense were able to get a little close, but not that close, to field goal range, Brandon McManus missed a 60-yard field goal kick to win the game just very short, as the Ravens went on to win this very offensive display of football 10-9. But for the Ravens, this win would be a little costly for them as starter Lamar Jackson left in the second quarter with a knee injury, never to return. But at least for them, apparently it's only a week to 3 week injury, so hopefully they'll get him back real soon. Now in Chicago, it was potentially one last opportunity to get one over Aaron Rodgers, but it turned into the usual Bears football of fuckery of mistakes and stupidity, which led to the Packers coming back from a 19-10 deficit in the third quarter and rubbing salt in the wound of whatever was left of Chicago in the last few minutes with a successful 2-point try on their last touchdown as Aaron Rodgers still owns the Bears 28-19. And eventually, as we'll talk about it later, with Seattle, well, Chicago is now officially eliminated from playoff contention, whatever that's worth. Jared Goff and the Lions scored touchdowns on 5 of their 7 drives, while holding the all-elite Jacksonville Jaguars offense to just 14 points and limiting their opportunities overall, as the Detroit Lions, all of a sudden, winning games as they beat the Jaguars 40-14 in a total blowout. Deshaun Watson's big return, not really what you expected. Had a few flashes, but a lot of rust. But for the Browns, it was okay for them, as their defense and special teams gave them a big boost to plaster the scoreboard on the lowly Texans 27-14. Minnesota got off to a red-hot start in the first half, but the Jets were slowly creeping up on them with field goals and a Mike White goal line sneak. But that was until the red zone issues that caused those field goals caught up to them in the final seconds as Mike White got intercepted in the end zone. That sealed the deal, closed the door shut for the New York Jets as they lost to the Vikings 27-22. And the Vikings are one step closer to clinching the NFC North. Now, in the Meadowlands in New Jersey, this game between the Commanders and the Giants was pretty crazy. Both teams found a way to either take a lead, sack each other's quarterbacks, find ways to lose this game, or just make good plays on each other. But either way, a lot of missed opportunities for this game because, of course, with the game on the line, with just seconds left in overtime, yes, this game did go to overtime. The Giants were in a position to win, but Graham Gano kicked it just short of the goalpost, and with no time remaining, of course, this game ends in a tie. The Washington Commanders and the New York Giants, at the worst time possible for them, they tied their game 20-all. Ouch. Just ouch, man. When you're competing for a playoff spot, that's absolutely not the thing that you want, especially if you're Washington, man. You're literally outside looking in behind Seattle. Oof. The Titans managed to shut down the run against the Philadelphia Eagles, but dearly paid the price for it as their old friend turned enemy, A.J. Brown, exacted revenge on his old team with the Eagles offense with 2 touchdowns. For the Philadelphia Eagles defense, they also notched 6 sacks on Ryan Tannehill as the Eagles destroyed the Titans 35-10. Man, poor Titans. Meanwhile, in the afternoon slate of games, despite Bobby Wagner of the Rams having a field day against his old team, the Rams were just not able to contain the speed and the power of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, as well as a last-minute clutch drive from Geno Smith that stole the win late for Seattle as they beat the Rams 27-23, as the defending champions are just one loss away from watching the playoffs at home. In the wake of adversity in the opening minutes, the 49ers defense clamped down to rattle Tua Tagovailoa into a ton of game-changing mistakes. Meanwhile, third stringer Brock Purdy stepped up in relief of Jimmy Garoppolo and had a really solid performance with the offense as the Niners hit the splashdown on the Dolphins 33-17. But just like in week 2 with Trey Lance, this win came at a costly price. I mean, depends on how you look at it. As Jimmy Garoppolo broke his foot, and it initially turned out to be a season-ending injury, but recent reports came out that he's only going to be missing about, I think, 7 to 8 weeks, so about a month and a half. So if the Niners make it that far into the playoffs, whether it's the divisional game or NFC Championship game, well, we'll see if they want to actually put in Jimmy G over Brock Purdy. So I guess that's somewhat good news, good hope if you're a Niners fan or a Jimmy Garoppolo fan. So there you go. Either way, I'm glad it's not at least that terrible of news for Jimmy Garoppolo as a person. So anyway, meanwhile, down in Cincinnati in a rematch of last season's AFC title game, it was a back and forth affair between the Bengals and the Chiefs. But the Bengals were once again the ones to have the last laugh over Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They got really good pressure on him and got a critical fumble of Travis Kelce and a fourth quarter touchdown by the Bengals Captain America, Chris Evans, as the Cincinnati Bengals got a upset win over Kansas City 27-24. It was probably a little too late in Las Vegas, but Josh McDaniels' Raiders may have finally found their groove on offense as Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, and Devontae Adams had really efficient performances, and they scored multiple times as they held off Justin Herbert and the Chargers late 27-20. In the Sunday night football game of the season, did we really need to see this game in prime time just because it was the Dallas Cowboys? Really? Just for the ratings, pal? Well, the Colts tried as they might, but Jeff Saturday's Colts embarrassingly allowed 33 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, some of which in less than 2 minutes from each other, and all while still having their starters out. And this was, some of them were even against Cowboys backups near the end of the game, as Dallas gave Jim Irsay every reason not to give Mr. Saturday a permanent job after this season, as Dallas hammered the Colts 54-19. In the Monday Night Football game to close out Week 13, the Saints pulled their own Atlanta Falcons blown lead because, well, the defense was able to force Tom Brady and the Bucs into so many mistakes, but then their own offense blew the game. And that allowed Tom Brady and the Bucs to rally back as Brady connected with Kate Otten and Rachaad White for 2 comeback touchdowns. The last one with less than 3 seconds remaining, as the Bucs went on to beat the New Orleans Saints 17-16. So those are your scores around the league in Week 13. And yeah, a lot of playoff shifting. In the AFC, you had the Buffalo Bills jump all the way up from 5 to, I think it was like number 1 after the losses by Kansas City and Miami. So now it's up to them if they can maintain that. And then, meanwhile, in the NFC, that tie between Washington and the Giants could be significant if one or the other loses in the wild card race. And, of course, Jimmy Garoppolo's injury, a lot of what Brock Purdy can do will hinge on the 49ers playoff hopes, let alone that. So this is going to be a very interesting final 5. What are we on? 5 weeks now, towards the end of the regular season. So, man, it's only the beginning of December, ladies and gentlemen. It's only the beginning of December. So let's talk about some winners and losers of Week 13. Starting off with some winners, the Buffalo Bills. This was a good performance against the Patriots. Finally getting their first division win, and the running game finally had its best game of the season with James Cook getting some open lanes, gained some good yardage on the Patriots' run defense, and just overall making Josh Allen's life much easier, not having him run so much himself. And the Bills' pass rush eventually was able to shut down and limit the Patriots' offense and just overall frustrate Mac Jones. And like I said earlier, thanks to some help from the Bengals and the 49ers, they got that top spot back in the AFC. Now it's up to them the rest of the way to maintain that. So we'll see what happens there. The Cincinnati Bengals, and they did a very good job on Sunday upsetting the Chiefs by pressuring Mahomes constantly, covering up their best weapon in Travis Kelce, and forcing Mahomes to rely on others throughout the game. And the offensive line for Cincinnati had its best game of the season in allowing Joe Burrow a lot of time to throw in the pocket, including key throws in the final minutes of the game to prevent Patrick Mahomes from ever touching the ball in the last 2 minutes of the game. So looks like the Bengals have officially buried their Super Bowl losers hangover. So good for them, really good for them. If they keep this up, then they could possibly regain control of the division, especially considering that the Ravens, they don't have Lamar Jackson for like at least a week or two. And if Tyler Huntley doesn't do that well against the Steelers and the Browns, even the skid marks with Deshaun Watson, then there's a prime opportunity for Cincinnati to retake control of the AFC North. The Detroit Lions. Yeah, I know. I give a lot of credit for the Lions and how, even as inconsistent as that offense can be, especially with Jared Goff at times, they have some future potential, especially if they get the right quarterback. If they draft the right quarterback under Dan Campbell, because if they can find that quarterback with that offense, with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, DeAndre Swift, and yes, even the touchdown vulture in Jamal Williams, this is a team that can compete for a playoff spot probably next year or the next 2 years. And that defense with Aiden Hutchinson is damn, it could be something. It could be something. And yeah, they got a blowout win against the all elite Jaguars. And if they wanted a playoff spot now, They may have some things that have to go their way, but the Lions continue to show their future potential this week on both sides of the ball against an inferior team. Now, could it lead to something next week against the Minnesota Vikings, who are playing for the division? We'll see. They played them tough before, but it remains to be seen. Now for your losers. I think there's going to be a theme unlike with the last 13 weeks I've been doing this. This week, I wanted to do something different. There's going to be a theme around this week's losers, and you'll notice it really quick. The Indianapolis Colts. So, they fought for 2 1/4 of a quarter, and then something happened. I guess you could say they took their own horseshoe and shoved it up their ass with one of the most embarrassing fourth quarters in recent memory, at least in my eyes, that I've seen in a long time as a casual football fan. It was absolutely embarrassing. They allowed 33 unanswered points to a Cowboys team that was just clearly stat padding. It looked like the Colts gave up at the point where they started just handing out free touchdowns. And heck, they even gave up a touchdown to the Cowboys' backups. And half of their turnovers came in that fourth quarter alone. So, and it's just like, damn. Yes, I guess it was clear that Jeff Saturday was clearly outcoached by a superior team, and he's clearly exposed that he's not the guy to coach Indianapolis. So maybe this is the sign. This is finally the sign, and this is no disrespect to Jeff Saturday, because it's just seeing him and how he acts, how he comes off. It looks like a real genuine guy, but it looks like he's just not there yet. He's just not there yet. So Jim Irsay better think long and real hard about potentially blowing mostly everything up after the season, because that game alone, and potentially even the previous game against the Steelers, was a showcase I wanted Jeff Saturday, and that core of talent should not be there. And possibly because they're so expensive next season. And then the New Orleans Saints. For most of that game, they actually had an opportunity. They actually had an opportunity to upset Tom Brady again and be his kryptonite again. But yet again, a litany of stupid mistakes or the lack of talent to close out a game would allow their rivals to complete what should have felt like an improbable comeback. So you could tell that defense, Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, they were getting tired. And earlier throughout much of the game, they were having Brady and the Bucs angry, frustrated. Tom Brady was yelling at his teammates again at the sideline. But then the offense and whatever Dennis Allen or in his offensive coordinator were doing with them, they fucked them over in the fourth quarter. So at 4-9, these final 4 games after the bye week, this should be all about trying to savor and salvage whatever their favorite guys they have, because perhaps they should be thinking about marching towards blowing it up too. If they even can with whatever money or not red money they have left. And then the LA Rams. And it's not to say, because I'm beating a dead horse here because, they're the Niners' rival or anything and they're doing terrible. But it goes to show that I guess the theme of this week's losers is, especially with the Rams, because, they're now officially the worst defending Super Bowl champion to start a season at 3-9. They found a way to try to avoid elimination this Thursday by getting Baker Mayfield off waivers. But the Rams are losers this week because as I transition over to the theme of this week's losers, this is an indictment on how desperation to feel relevant in spite of throwing away salary, throwing away picks, will end up hurting a team in the long run. And this is exactly what the Indianapolis Colts, the New Orleans Saints, and the LA Rams have all done. It has led up to this moment, not specifically for the Rams, but it'll end up leading to them this offseason. So their futures, short term and long term, are going to be very shit. It's going to be very shit. They're not going to be able to re-sign some of their key players. I mean, they have some of their franchise players locked up, but how are they going to support them? Just saying. And of course, we're going to talk about more of that when we get to recap season. So those are your winners and losers of week 13. And as for my hurry up discussion for this week, I want to talk about that tie between Washington and the New York Giants, because, man, that was a crazy. I gotta say, it was a crazy game. But it's just like I just think to myself, this is just another example of like these ties do end up hurting teams. Whether it's at the beginning of the season and then they hurt them eventually if they're in a playoff position, or in the case of the Commanders and the Giants right now, it hurts them now at the worst possible time. Tying things up now hurts them now, because if you're Washington, you're out of the playoff picture if you tie it up, because Seattle is taking your spot. So, ouch. So my point I'm trying to make is that should they implement the sudden death overtime in the regular season? And I know some people will complain like, oh, the reason why they don't have sudden death overtime in the NFL in the regular season is because, well, it would make the games too longer. Look at the NBA. Look at the NHL. Look at baseball. Baseball is the longest game in sports, people, with extra innings. And then the NBA has as many overtimes as they need. And then in the NHL, you have the overtime period and shootout, however long that lasts. But why does the NFL have to have a tie in the regular season? It doesn't make sense to me. And especially if you tie, like I said, it affects the playoff standings. And especially if you tie late in the season, it affects you at the worst possible time. So eventually it's going to have to come to a point where the NFL should at least consider making overtime sudden death. I mean, they might have to adjust the rules, maybe make it 5 minutes less longer, and give each team a chance to possess the ball, like in college football. I don't know. Like, find a way to make sudden death overtime possible in the regular season so it doesn't affect the playoff standings. Just saying. So those are my thoughts on week 13. Let me know what you think about how your team did, or what how the rest of the league did in the comments below, and what you think about sudden death overtime in the regular season. Like, you think that could work, or you think ties are the way to go in 2022 and beyond, however long that lasts. So let me know your thoughts about anything that I talked about in this week 13 recap in the comments below, and let's have a discussion about it. So anyway, this is DylanLasagna of Very Cold Lasagna, and keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your take on the world of sports. And until next time, peace out.